Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gaming Daddy channel. So today we're going to be looking at Armor and a potential fix that the developers can maybe implement or maybe test out to see how that will be, because it seems like Armor doesn't seem to be rewarding enough. And the reason I say that is because if you look at perhaps say our red cores, which are our weapon damage cores, or attributes that basically go with weapon damage and different damage applications, you see that weapon damage, critical hit chance, and critical hit damage actually are worth specking into. Every single bit of it is going to improve your build drastically. If you look at skill tier, if you spec into the 6 skill tiers or 5 using technician or using the card sidearm to get the last 6 tier skill tier, or using the memento backpack, you're going to see the reward for all of that. The only problem is when you come to Armor, your reward and your investment is very, very lopsided. You invest 6 armor cores and it doesn't necessarily feel like you actually are tanky, which is exactly what that should be. Now, I can understand the developers wanting players to use cover. That's a thing that they've always wanted to make sure that we do in the game. But then at the same time, why would anybody want to bother building with armor, except just to say, oh, I want to get my shield to 6 skill tiers, when in reality you can also use your skill tiers to get your shield to skill tier 6, or you can use armor cores to do so. And I think there is a very, very good fix that was actually given to me by a good buddy of mine. Fat Ninja is one of the guys that plays the Division here with me and all that stuff. We work on a bunch of projects together, which we're going to reveal hopefully very soon. And he gave me a very cool idea and said, if they really want to make these armor cores to work, then they really need to allow for players to be able to earn them by actually building specifically. And his proposal was, you have to run max health in order to gain that armor benefit. And so if you run max health, every single armor core that you have on will count for a percentage health armor regeneration on your agent. So say if you run health on your holster, knee pads, gloves, chest piece, mask, and backpack, then every major blue core will start to count as armor regeneration for you. So if you run max health and you run 6 blue cores, then guess what? You have 6% armor regeneration. Now, that sounds like it's crazy, but think about all of the damage that you're missing out on and all of the damage that you're losing, because your builds are pretty much going to look like blue. If you really want to be super tanky, it's going to be blue, yellow, red, or something of that nature, where you're going to be working to actually do that. But then it goes into what it means to actually be a tank at that point. And so, yes, you will receive all of that strength. You'll gain your 6, armor cores, and then you're going to start getting health regeneration for your agent so that you can do some really cool things like pick people up when they're down, go ahead and make sure that your team stays heavily supported and do some really, really difficult content, and you become viable as a tank in the game. I think that's one way to go. Now, if you think about it too, another brand set that's in this game actually does encourage for health and hazard protection and all that stuff, and that's 511. But right now, the current 511 will probably need a rework in order for it to be able to fit into this. Now, 10% health, that already seems pretty good for what it is. But there has to be something else other than like incoming repairs that actually, encourages the agents to actually work it. So if they actually rework 511 and look into how they can work this armor mitigation with health relationship, I think they'll be in a good spot to make armor the way it is. Now, you may say that 6% health regeneration is crazy because there are all kinds of other items in this game that do allow for armor regeneration. Sorry, I meant to say, like golden gear, like the Emperor's Guards knee pads. I don't have one on this character. Like some other aspects in regard to building that could make it scale crazy and out of hand. And I definitely can understand how that will be a thing. But it is the jobs of the developers to be able to plot this into an algorithm in order for them to figure out how this is all going to work out. We had a conversation lately about the game and why it's very challenging to make some really good items. And the conclusion that we came to was these developers will most likely need a very complex algorithm to be able to plug in, different values. So if they say they design something like the Backfire exotic SMG? Is there an algorithm that they have that can actually put together different build values, different build factors that will factor in all of the different numbers that we have to factor in? You know, the way we build, we look at specialization, we look at weapons, we look at weapon talents, we look at brand sets, brand set bonus, you know, the core, the minor attributes, and we also look at our skills at that point. So could there be an algorithm that the developers can make that has everything in it in different combinations that they can just throw stuff into? Now, I don't think they have something like that, because if they did, they wouldn't have to bother about a PTS, because, you know, they do the BTSs and the incentives for us to, you know, to see if players are able to find these things if they're broken. So it's not out of the question. When they're bringing out some other new content, they can see if they can make this change, put it in a PTS. We'll be happy to test it out, because this is the one area that this game is actually kind of lacking on when it comes to you know, mechanics and implementation for how the player builds and how strong the player is. Other than that, I think the way everything is set up with your skill tiers, with your weapon damage cores, I think those are actually well done. I mean, if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, it's just when it comes to armor, that's where we have a problem. And then I think what really complicates it, and this is going to be a drawback, is they already have armor regen in, you know, in the game. And so what armor regen actually does is that it actually replenishes your armor. And, you know, when we talk about the armor cores actually granting you armor regen, we could also make the case to say, but you can always just go run, you know, run armor regen on your builds in order to get that benefit. And I do definitely understand. I mean, right now, my armor is around like, you know, 1 million based on what I'm putting on. And I have a few items that have like, you know, 8 to 10,000 armor regen. So if they're ticking every second, that's actually pretty good if I run that in a build, or I run something like 1% armor regen on top of the armor regen that I'm running. So there are already ways to actually start getting your agents to heal by themselves or replace their armor if you're not running directives while you're still in the game. So I think this is where the biggest stumbling block is going to be, because there's already armor regen in the game, and to have the developers implement something like that, the numbers may not necessarily be, you know, 1% armor regen per core. It could be 0.5% armor regen per blue core that you run. It could be 0.3, 0.4, whatever it is, to the point where it makes you as the agent quite, you know, quite strong. Because yes, enemy NPCs, they rush you, they press you, but if you jump into cover and you're a tank, you know, you ought to at least have a way to replenish your health without feeling like, you know, you're just one helpless tank that can't do anything. And I understand, you know, some people play tanks and, you know, they don't really know how to play a very cautious tank. They run in the middle of danger, and the AI is actually also very brilliant and can take you out if you're, even if you're using a Foundry Bulwark build or whatever. And so all of this is still up for discussion. You know, you have to factor in Foundry Bulwark. You have to factor in the, you know, the chess piece, the tardigrade chess piece. So many things need to be factored in, but it is not an excuse not to get this done. Anyways, that's pretty much my video. I wanted to just go ahead and start this conversation. I appreciate you guys that gave me the idea on the armor cores. Somebody else also noted this on one of my videos in the comments, but I think Mr. Fat Ninja was able to hone it down and say this seems to be a much more specific application that can work. So what do you think? Do you think this is something that the developers should do, can do, or do you think it's something that they should not touch, because we also have to consider PvP, which is now a whole different layer of this whole balancing thing? Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section, and hopefully we'll see in another video. Peace out.